Hey Cameron, thank you for coming on today. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about you to start and who you are, kind of what you do, and then we'll go from there.
My name's Cameron Baisden, and I am currently an electrician for my dad's company called NWR Electric, in the works of going to college and potentially trying out for the Ohio State football team.
Awesome. All right. So Cameron, obviously you and I know each other, and this podcast is kind of testimonies of how people came to know Jesus, the whole story. So what's the whole story? How did you come to know Jesus? Where did he meet you?
Yeah. So first off, I would just like to say that my story is a testimony of God's faithfulness, kindness, and patience. If this testimony does nothing for anyone, I hope that at least that is seen clearly. I'll give you a little bit of background about how I grew up so that you can get into my headspace and kind of understand where I was at. Um, when I was 5 or 6 years old, my parents got divorced. And I remember being at a soccer game that I was playing in and feeling what I now know to be anxiety. It was like the first signs of it in my life, and insecurity. Fast forward to when I was 9 years old. I now lived at my mom's house with my grandma and brothers, not with my dad, who's kind of out of the picture. And me and my grandma, we had like a really strong relationship. I remember one night she decided to tell me stories about the book of Revelations in the Bible. The story she was telling me was just scared me to death, and she knew that it was scaring me. After she told me all these stories, I asked her, I was like, how can I be safe from all this? And she answered, to trust in Jesus and pray to him only. That night, I prayed to Jesus that he would save me from the evil, specifically in the book of Revelations, but really all evil. I began to pray many things to the Lord, and to be able to play for Ohio State football, for my dad to know Jesus, for my brothers to know Jesus. And as I look back, some of those prayers were answered. 2 out of 3, still waiting on a few, but within the next couple of weeks, the church started talking to us about baptism, and my mom, she took us to church, so I decided to ask her to sign me up for it. And while you might think this is the end, and from this point forward, that's how my relationship with Jesus started, this is really just where it began. This relationship that I had with Jesus through prayer only lasted about 6 months. The Lord showed me many miracles in those 6 months, but due to the worries of this world, I fell away. Some of those worries included only seeing my dad every 6 months, and when I did see him, the police were always involved due to fighting between my mom and dad. Even though they were divorced, they still fought, only now it was in the front lawn and not in their bedroom. Another worry was my cousin going to prison for murder. My cousin is black, and a lot of racist people would make comments saying this, insert racial comment, is going to die in prison, and people were going to assault him. The way that I reconciled all this evil in my life and what I saw in the world was to believe that God was not real. I did not consciously think this or choose to believe this. It just slowly happened over time as I tried to reconcile these things. Moving forward to 4th grade, I began to struggle with lust. I was encouraged by friends and even my dad to try some things out that I know now were not good things. This led me to experience shame for the first time. And even for the first time, I knew I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. Also around this age, I decided to put all my hope and effort into football. If I couldn't find my identity anywhere else, it was going to be football. Flash forward to about 6th grade, over winter break, I experienced something I had never experienced before for the first time ever. For 2 weeks straight, I cried, and uncontrollably, we tried everything to make it stop, and it just wouldn't go away. There was nothing that would make it go away. This was while I was at my dad's house for the first time in a very long time. When I got home, back to my mom's, she decided we would pray. So as she was praying, I experienced peace and love, like a deep sense of peace and love that just made it all go away. I was completely healed. And even though the Lord healed me through this, I still turned away. Flash forward to high school, I began hanging around people that I thought were cool, and I wanted to be like them. They would use substances to have a good time, and I thought that meant that I should too. I took it one step further, though. I wanted to have a good time all the time. So I began using nicotine, alcohol, and marijuana to numb myself to my anxiety and depression. One thing still remained constant for me. I was going to play football at OSU. While the Lord blessed me athletically and I was doing very well in football, I still did not think I was enough. I spoke with a friend and began to buy steroids from him and using them to improve my performance. Well, there were many side effects to steroids. One side effect to steroids that I was taking was dry joints. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but it came to be the fall. Flash forward to senior year. This was my year. This was it. This is where everything was supposed to line up. It was looking very promising. I was doing very well at football, so much so that college coaches were reaching out to me. One of them was actually a Big Ten school, emailing back and forth with my dad. And then this all just came to a halt game 3 when my shoulder popped out of place. It had damaged a bunch of stuff in my shoulder and it was going to require surgery. So yeah, going back to that game, my mom went up to all my football games. And so when I was anxious, it was the biggest game of the season. We were playing Pick North, and they were former state champs, and it was the biggest game of the season, so I was really nervous going into it. I was looking in the stands to find my mom for a sense of peace, because I would always look for my mom in the stands before every game, and she wasn't there. Yeah, and the reason she wasn't there was because a pipe burst in our house, and the entire house was flooded. So as I get home from that game, the entire house is stripped clean down to the 2x4s. Yeah, so then a few months later, I ended up getting surgery. I got the surgery that I needed. And this was close to the lowest point of my life, walking around the house in a sling. There's no drywall up. It's literally just the bare bones. But the house was just a reflection of me. It was broken down to nothing. I remember my mom would tell me that God still has a plan for my life. And I would curse my mom out, curse God out, and say that if this was God's plan for my life, I want nothing to do with him. So I began using more substances to numb the depression that ensued. I would use the oxy that the doctor prescribed me, became pretty addicted to that, and then also LSD. But these things could not take away the depression. Due to all the substances that I was using, there's a huge chemical imbalance in my brain. At the end of senior year, I ended up in a mental hospital. Mental hospital was a little bit different than Ohio State. My plans, they just weren't working. I decided I would stop using the substances and stick only to marijuana and nicotine. But one thing I would try differently is I would try a relationship. So I started dating a girl and doing things that I should not have been doing to try to find love. I also moved out with some friends, and I was living away from my mom. To pay for rent, I would work for my dad's electrical company. Although instead of actually spending the money that I was getting from working there on rent, I bought drugs instead and would borrow money from my family to pay rent. This led to me being distant from my family, not wanting to talk to them, knowing that I owed them money, and just really avoiding them. I remember one time being so broke at work that I actually ate the food off the bottom of a work van, a dirty work van. Yeah, mind you, work vans are not clean. I lost so much weight over the course of a year that I went from 210 pounds to 130. Eventually, my friends betrayed me, and all that I was left with was this girl, until she betrayed me too. I was lost, alone, depressed, hopeless, paranoid, hungry in more ways than one, and I had nothing and no hope. One day I was driving home from work, and I decided to give this whole God thing a shot. So I turned on the river radio. A song hit me really hard, and I began to weep uncontrollably, so I had to pull over. What happened next is pretty unbelievable, and for the longest time I really didn't tell anyone, because I know it sounds crazy, but Jesus spoke to me and told me that he was my friend. I was then given a vision that I really don't understand and know how to describe, but it was like I was looking through a well, and I saw people up there, and then all of a sudden I was pulled up and then pushed down immediately, and then I heard a voice say, "He's not ready." From this point forward, Jesus is my Lord. I prayed to him immediately after that, a prayer of repentance, and as I was praying, I heard heavenly sounds around me. The most beautiful sounds I've ever heard. The list is lengthy of what Jesus has done in my life since following him. Some of the notable big things are: Jesus has healed me of my addiction to substances. Jesus has saved my dad and given me a strong relationship with him. Jesus has healed my depression. He's given me an opportunity to go to OSU and potentially try out for the team. He's healed my broken family. He's given me purpose. And Jesus was faithful, even though I was faithless.
Man, Cameron, I love you, buddy. That's an awesome story. What was like the biggest lesson that you learned from all of this? This is the main lesson I learned from my story. What would it be?
The biggest lesson that God has taught me as I've followed him and as I've learned more about him is learning about Jesus dying on the cross and how that is necessary for every aspect of living. On the good days, I need Jesus dying on the cross. On the bad days, I need Jesus dying on the cross. That it's literally necessary for every aspect of life. His love poured out into our hearts gives us purpose, and there's nothing we can do to earn it. Good day, bad day, it doesn't matter. We need him just the same.
That's awesome. So what would be like kind of the one verse that you live by or that's kind of core to your faith?
I would say Psalm 23. Psalm 23 is a psalm. It's 6 verses, not necessarily one verse. And I would also say in Luke, the prodigal son story, really connected well with me, where there's a son who wants to just wants his dad for money, takes his money, leaves, goes and spends it all, becomes so poor and broke, goes back to his dad, and the dad welcomes him with open arms. And that's just a reflection of God's love to us. In Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life.
Cameron, thanks for coming on here and sharing your story, man. I appreciate it, and it's been great to see how different stories and different testimonies have moved different people, and I can't wait to see what God does through it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here.